Hello and welcome to Line Sniper Fight Night. I'm your host, Dave Milhouse. Today we're talking UFC Vegas 30 from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. We're in the UFC Apex. We got a hell of a main event for you here. Ciryl Gane, Alexander Volkov. The heavyweights are getting going. Co-main event's heavyweight too, so there's going to be a lot of power in the ring to close this card out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Got Manpreet with me here at MMA. Lock of the night, LOTN. We're going to go over the main card. We're going to give you our best bets from the prelims, sprinkle a little for you, find you all the value so that you can have a profitable Saturday night while you're enjoying the violence from the living room couch. Manpreet, my man, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm really looking forward to this card coming up, especially with Ciryl Gane and Alexander Volkov. It's finally the test we've been waiting to see Gane. We definitely needed it, right? You can't continue to beat up on the Tanner Bozers of the world or the Jairzinho Rosenstrikes. We need him to go up there against a legit talent, and I feel like Volkov is that talent that should allow us to see what Ciryl Gane truly has. So that's easily the fight that I'm looking forward to most. We have a week break after that, which leads us right to UFC 264, which is the Conor Poirier card. So I'm trying to soak up as much fist fighting this weekend as I can to hold me over for the next week where we got nothing coming up. So yeah, as always, excited to break it down with you, and I can't wait to get this show on the road, brother.
Man, I totally forgot we had a bye week coming up, and there's nothing that feels longer than a week without UFC. Oh my God. But luckily, they're treating us to a good main event here. Like you said, this should be exactly the test we need to see. Ciryl Gane taking on Alexander Volkov. Volkov's, a legit top 6-7 guy, top 5, some would say. We'll see. But yeah, Cyril's been beaten up on, middling competition. We can say Dos Santos is good, but, he's up at heavyweight. He's not quite as dangerous, I would say. Rosenstrike, the guy's got no volume. Tanner Boaster just got cut and called back. Rafael Pasosa, bum. Dontel Mays, bum. So, it's time for a real test here. And even though he tripled up on strikes or doubled each one of his competitors, it's time to find out what he's made against a real opponent here. When we go through the data, pretty similar numbers here. They both throw a lot of volume. Cyril's landing 5 strikes a minute. Volkov's 4.88. And Volkov has fought the better competition, so we can kind of ignore that he's eating about 0.6 strikes a minute more. Both very positive. Both have positive striking versus expected, and both land more strikes in total per minute than they absorb. So I expect a lot of fists to fly in this one. These are heavy volume heavyweights, good strikers. How do you see this one going? Is there some value on the dog?
That's all I'm seeing on my Twitter timeline, apparently. Everybody loves Volkov this week, and I do think that there are a couple other spots that we're going to talk about on this card where people are going to be seeking value, but will still end up ripping up their tickets to Saturday night. I like Gane in this fight. I do think that his potential will shine through here against Volkov. Volkov had 2 impressive performances last time around, obviously against, most recently against Walt Harris. But he also has been looking good, obviously, in that Alistair Overeem fight where he was able to finish him too. But the thing that's been very noticeable about Volkov in his last 2 fights is the weight that he put on, or like the muscle that he's put on. He used to come in around that 240ish, 250ish, but now he's right at that 265-pound limit, trying to bulk up and truly fill out that frame of his. But I don't think it's going to work out for him here against Ciryl Gane, who I do believe has the better footwork and is able to stay away from the big shots of Volkov. And I do believe that Gane actually has a 1 or 2 inch reach advantage on him. I don't think it's going to be that pronounced, obviously, because Volkov is a taller fighter in this situation. But in terms of how their striking styles play out, I think the stick and move approach from Gane, especially including his speed advantage, is going to be a little bit too much for Volkov to keep up with. Now, technically speaking, I think Volkov is the better and more devastating striker, but you can't really hit what you can't see. And I think that's going to be the story of this fight with Gane, landing the better and bigger strikes. And then, even mixing in a couple of takedowns. That seems to be Volkov's kryptonite, is when guys are able to get him down. And I'm completely throwing out the Curtis Blades fight because he's the best wrestler in that division, bar none. I'm not expecting Gane to come in here with Curtis Blades type wrestling, but, just mix in a couple here and there. Keep Volkov on the tip of his toes. Keep him thinking about what's coming next at him. And I think that's the best thing that Ciryl Gane has coming for him, right? Or has going for him, in terms of the fact that you can't really pinpoint what exactly his game plan is going to be. He's good everywhere. He's only like 8 or 9-0 or something, but very good. He's pretty much gone out there and done everything that he's needed or supposed to do against his opponents. A lot of people are kind of cold on him though because of the Jairzinho Rosenstrike fight, but like, how else are you supposed to play that fight? You're fighting a ticking time bomb essentially. Like as soon as Jairzinho lands on your chin clean enough, you're probably going to go to sleep. So if anything, I'd be blaming the Jairzinho Rosenstrike side of things rather than Gon, who's playing the safe game and just trying to make sure that he goes out there, one, with double his money, and two, continuing this undefeated streak that he's currently on. So I think he shines through once again here against Volkov. The last thing I'll say about this, the one drama I've been seeing a lot of people beat this whole week is the resumes and the experience and everything that Volkov has been through. Former Bellator champ, former M1 champ, has big wins under his belt, compared to Cyril Gane, who his best win is what, Junior Dos Santos. Like that's really about it, especially a 2020 Junior Dos Santos. So people want to discredit him from that, but like he's at the mercy of his promotion and the matchmaking. It's not like he's going out there and turning down big fights or tough fights. He's taking every fight they're putting in front of him, and he's passing it with flying colors, in my opinion. So I think he'll do the same thing here against Volkov, who's going to be a little bit too slow. And I think we'll see Cyril Gane go out there and outpoint Volkov of the majority of these 5 rounds, mix in a couple takedowns, outstrike him, and get his hand raised by decision here. So I think if you're looking for some value, I think the best way to go for it is to take Cyril Gane by decision, which currently sits at plus 205. I love that line. I might even be sprinkling a little bit of it on my own.
Yeah, if I was going to bet a side on this, that's probably the way to do it. And just to kind of echo chamber what you were saying, yeah, Twitter's high on Volkov. He's fought the better guys, yada, yada, yada. Look, it's not like the line makers didn't know that when they set this line. And then big money moved it. Okay, it's not guys on Twitter throwing 100, 200, even 1,000, really shifting the market. There's big money that's saying Cyril Gane's better than Volkov. And I'm not so surprised when you look at what he's done to his seemingly weak level of competition. When you outstrike Dos Santos 60-10, Rosenstrike, who's super dangerous, 102-42. I mean, those are beatdowns. Tanner Boaster's more of a volume guy, outstruck him 65-32. He's doing what he has to do. He's fighting with high IQ, which is something I like when I'm making a bet. You don't want someone engaging in firefights when they're winning every round. This guy doesn't really lose rounds. He gets up in the first 20 seconds of a round, and then he just kind of hangs out and jabs your face off, cuts off the cage, puts you in a bad spot against the cage kind of thing, like he did to Rosenstrike, and literally just stood there, hopped in with a jab, jabbed his face off, never risked being in danger at all. He's got the cardio for 5 rounds. He's got the jab. I really enjoy that. I think he's a good fighter. The problem I have with betting this one is it feels like now, the line is correct. I don't feel like there's a big edge either side. I'm not interested in Volkov until it's more like plus 180, 190. Even though I do think he's dangerous, it's hard to hit Cyril Gane. The guy's got a 69% striking defense. I know it's not the greatest list, but Dos Santos is a pretty good striker. Boaster's a decent striker. He lands about half his strikes. He's got a lot of volume. Rosenstrike's a very dangerous striker. Yet none of these guys are really landing on him at all. Now, I do think Volkov will break that and land more than these guys were. He's a very accurate striker himself, and he's very long, so it's about time Cyril's reach gets challenged with a guy with equal. But in no way do I find this fight bettable. And when I look on my Twitter timeline, the MMA community seems to be putting on a bit of a parade for Volkov here, like he should be the favorite. I disagree. I don't think he should be the favorite. If he should have been the favorite, the market would have made him a favorite right after they opened him as a dog, right? So I'm going to have to agree with the line move on Cyril Gane, but I don't think there's any value left. But it's going to be one hell of a show, and you're going to learn a lot about both fighters in this one going forward. Sometimes these ones where you learn something are far more important than the ones you bet on. And I'm looking forward. It's going to be an excellent main event. I don't mind that stuff where it's just kind of jabbing and point fighting. I get like more. I like watching high IQ stuff. It makes me happy about my future bets I'm going to place. And I really enjoyed watching Cyril Gane's last performance against Rosenstrike when the whole community was like up in arms about how boring it was. All I seen was a big bag of money jabbing a guy's face off that you can totally trust. You know what I mean? Just that's what you got to look at. And technically sound, no mistakes. Mwah. chef's kiss. Let's move on to the co-main event. Canada's freshly cut and recalled Tanner Boaster takes on Ovince St. Prue. Manpreet, when was the last time a Canadian won? Has it been like 2 years?
I did see a tweet out there saying like 150
Yeah.
days or something like that, but I do believe somebody else told me that Eamon Zahabi and John McDessie, who upset Ignacio Bahamundes. So it hasn't been more than a month and a half or 2 months. So
Yeah, that's super exaggerated then, right? I seen that tweet too and was thinking about it, but I totally bet McDessie that night. That was not long ago. But anyway, here we have Tanner Boaster, Ovince St. Prue. This is very interesting to me. The market's kind of low on Tanner Boaster here, yet he's still a minus 150 favorite. He lands 4.2 strikes a minute. He only gets hit with 2.2. If we look at his schedule here, yeah, he lost to Latifi, but he outstruck him 45-10 in significant strikes. Yeah, he lost to Arlovsky, but he outstruck Arlovsky 68-34. And his other loss, Cyril Gahn. Cyril Gahn's the only guy to outstrike Tanner Boaster. And I know that doesn't guarantee you'll win the fight, but if you're taking guys that are, doubling up on strikes, you should be winning a lot more than you're losing. And St. Prue's a guy who doesn't really have the volume. He's got a long career. He's only averaging 2.7 strikes a minute while he's getting hit with 3. He's getting hit with 55% of what he faces, and he's only landing 46. He's a below average striker by UFC standards. And Tanner Boaster is above average based on UFC standards. And that seems incorrect just, off the top of your head, but that's why we have data to look at. Tanner Boaster is pretty active. He's pretty fast on his feet for a heavyweight. And you know what? We take a look at Ovince here. He spent a lot of time at 205. The only heavyweight he's faced was Ben Rothwell. I thought Ben, took it to him pretty good. It was a split decision, but at the end of the day, Tanner Boaster's kind of like a really big 205 or more than he is like a heavyweight. You know what I mean? He's fluid. There's just his fight style. I think he kind of matches up against St. Prue pretty well. So for me, it's a matter of can he stuff the takedowns? That's tough to say. I will say Latifi is a way better wrestler than Ovince St. Prue. So to look into the last fight and go, well, Latifi got him down. I think it was every single round he took him down. I don't think that translates here. But if you're going to find value on this, it is all about the takedowns versus the takedown defense. Ovince is going to need himself a sub probably or a lot of control time. Otherwise, I do think Tanner Boaster will outpoint him. Now, do you agree with me here or do you see this going a different way?
I kind of agree with you. I think that a lot of people are going to be looking to bet OSP here strictly due to the Latifi fight last time around, right? We know OSP is quite crafty on the ground. He has the Von Prue choke and all that type of stuff, and people think that's going to come to fruition this weekend. But I think it's not going to be that easy. I think that OSP could win the first round here with the takedown or something. But after that, we've seen OSP's gas tank visibly decline a lot, right? And I think that's where Tanner Boaster should be able to take advantage of him here. I think that the footwork and the leg kicks and the ability to just stay away from OSP will help him a lot here in terms of just mixing up the game with his striking. And again, mainly those leg kicks. That's kind of been the calling card for Tanner Boaster whenever he wins fights, is establish that leg kick. And I think if he does that here against, in my opinion, somewhat of a flat-footed OSP, he should have a lot of success. So as long as he doesn't go out there and get submitted in that first round, I think OSP is going to struggle a lot to get him down in that second and third round, and that's where Boaster should start to run away with this fight. So the way that I'm looking to attack this fight is actually Boaster by decision, as I do think that he's going to go out there and just do a classic Tanner Boaster type performance here. The over 2.5 is minus 140. I wish there was a slightly better line on that because I do think that this does go over. But the line that I'm looking at, Boaster by decision plus 240, I think you got to take advantage of that. Again, I don't think that OSP will be able to keep up with his volume, the movement, and even the cardio, which I think is going to be the main X factor in this fight. If OSP can't get him out of there in that first round, it's going to be a long 10 minutes for him in the second and third rounds, where Boaster is just going to be kicking his leg to death, landing some combinations, and getting out of the way of the big strikes of OSP, as well as the takedown attempts of OSP. Again, OSP's wrestling compared to Latifi, completely different worlds. And even the top control, think it's completely different worlds. So I do like Mr. Boaster here. And last thing I'll say about this, OSP was scheduled to fight Maxime Grishin at 205. And then the fight gets pulled. I think Grishin had visa issues, if I'm not mistaken, and Tanner Boaster steps in on short notice. So OSP, has the benefit of not having to cut weight anymore, but he was scheduled and training to fight a light heavyweight compared to Tanner Boser, who, like you said, could be a light heavyweight, but is still a pretty big boy in his own right. And I think it's going to be tougher for OSP to get his takedown game going and be efficient with it. So I'm going with Boser, and Boser by decision at plus 240. Give me some of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is one of my favorite fights on the card in terms of value. I think Boaster should be more like minus 185 or so. So you're getting a few cents of value. If he can keep this one up, he's going to pull away on the strikes. And if you really think he's going to get submitted, I think you can get OSP by sub plus 400. Honestly, that's not high enough for me, but that's his path, I would say. Of course, in heavyweight, anyone can get knocked out, but realistically, you're going to want to see a Von Flue if this guy's going to be ahead. So Tanner Boaster, by decision, I don't mind at all. The only thing I would worry about is he just got let go. He might feel like he needs to come out and crack heads and fight a little different than he has been fighting. Because the way he has been fighting is, got him 2 losses in a row. Even though I'll be honest, I thought he won both those fights. And I bet on Latifi by decision. So there I am cashing a plus 375 thinking, I think Boaster won. Is what it is. But that gives us value in the future. So Tanner Boaster should be in that minus 185, maybe even minus 200 range. You can get him pretty cheap at minus 150 right now. Let's move down the card. This is going to be an absolute banger. I cannot wait to watch this. Hani Barcelos, Timur Valiev. Just hook it to my veins, okay? In the event that Valiev had a tougher strength of schedule, I honestly think the data on these fighters would be like a mirror. They're both landing about 5.5 strikes a minute. The difference is Valiev's barely been tested. He's only getting hit 1.5 times a minute to Barcelos' 4.17. However, strength of schedule, it's not really comparable, even though neither of them are too strong. So we throw the data aside here because I think it would be very similar against similar competition. Even the takedowns are both in the 2.5 range every 15 minutes. It's going to be I think this is a closer fight than the odds suggest. So Valiev, to me, I think shouldn't be any higher than plus 150. You can definitely get him higher than plus 150 right now. He is sitting, I don't know, plus 180-ish. I do think that's a reasonable bet. However, I do expect Barcelos to just edge him out. And so do I really just want to light money on fire because this guy's supposed to be losing 60% of the time instead of 63? I don't really see the value in that. Unless you can convince me to be betting on Timur Valiev here, I think I'm going to pass. But as far as my numbers go, he's got the edge. What do you see happening in this fight?
Man, it's a great fight. Like you said, injecting it into my veins. I'm right there with you on that IV drip, my brother. I do think that this fight's going to be spectacular for as long as it lasts. I do see a potential for a finish on either side here. Both guys can crack. Both guys have good submission games of their own. But I think this might be a one where the value hunters are just going to still end up ripping up their tickets, like the Volkov fight that we talked about a little bit earlier. People see the value that Volkov brings and see the value that Valiev brings, but at the end of the day, I still think that the favorite is the rightful favorite here. It may not be accurate in terms of the line. Maybe we should get Barcelos around minus 150 compared to the minus 200 that he's currently at. But I still think he's slightly better at pretty much everywhere here. Valiev is one of those Mark Henry Dagestani guys compared to the AKA Khabib guys that we're used to. But you see his Zabit Magomed Sharipov side come out, right? He throws a lot of spinning stuff, throws a lot of flying stuff, is very confident in his striking skills, but does mix in the wrestling like he needs to, or when he needs to, just in his last fight, when he fought Martin Day. He's coming off a big knockout loss to Trevin Jones in his UFC debut and wants to, secure a solid victory in his next fight, which could possibly, be the end of his UFC run if he goes out there and gets knocked out by Martin Day, who has some solid power in his own hands. So we saw him play it safe, grapple for the majority of that fight, control Martin Day for the majority of that fight, and take home a victory there. But I do think that he's going to struggle here with Barcelos, who's a great wrestler, a great grappler, and I think a slightly better technical striker, especially in the Muay Thai realm, compared to the Valiev, flashy style spinning, flying stuff that he throws out there when he does want to engage in the striking. I'd actually like to see these guys like grapple. You know what I mean? I want to see how that fight plays out if these guys go out there and try to, to turn it into a wrestling match or turn it into a jiu-jitsu match. I'd love to see how that plays out. But I think that Barcelos being slightly more polished in the striking realm and slightly more polished in the wrestling realm will eventually give him the victory here. And I do think that he's the better fighter, man. It's crazy that he isn't already a highly ranked fighter. This guy's been around the UFC for a while now, been somewhat inactive, so I kind of understand that. But he deserves to be a top 10 guy. I think he has title aspirations, as I do think with Timur Valiev. I think it's just very unfortunate that these guys are scheduled up against each other now, considering that they're both on the rise. The last thing it reminds me of is when Hikaru Hamosh was scheduled to go up against Saeed Nurmagomedov. Both guys highly ranked at the time, highly touted, up-and-comer, bright prospects. Both guys have top 5 talent. And then we saw how that went. I believe Saeed Nurmagomedov ended up coming out on the winning end. And I think, unfortunately, this time it's going to be the Brazilian coming out with his hand raised. And again, there might not be much value on his betting line straight. But again, a fight that I could see go the distance. So why not try to chase that Barcelos by decision prop, which is currently sitting at plus 140. Value by decision is plus 300, which is crazy value in my opinion as well. So if you think that value wins, I think that's a solid way to approach it. But I still do get a feeling that we'll see Barcelos get his hand raised this weekend, and I think it's going to be by decision.
I'd have to agree with you. Barcelos looks easily like a top 10 talent. I think it's his schedule that kind of prevents him from going there. Guy's almost always a big favorite. I've bet on him every single UFC fight he's ever had, and I'm 5-0.
You're doing well.
I still can't pull the trigger here. Yeah, he was a dog to Kurt Holloway, which I thought was a joke, and then since then he's like minus 500, minus 1100. He's a pick 'em against Nurmagomedov there. Close fight. Some people think he lost. I thought he won, but maybe I was a little biased. And then he was minus 450-ish against Taha. So it's kind of hard to really jump the rankings when you're getting all these, fights where you're minus 500. And even again here, still minus 230-ish right now. That's kind of high for this fight. If he wins, is it really going to jump him up the rankings, though? I don't really think so. This guy's got to get himself in a position where he's the dog, and he's got to, do what he does, and then we're going to see him in the top 10. But it is a pretty stacked division. This is deep. So I don't know why they're taking their time so much with Hani Barcelos, but the UFC most certainly is. And yeah, I would agree. This is such a close matchup. They both are good grapplers, good strikers, good footwork. I think this goes to decision. The minus 225 on the over 2.5, I'm not crazy about. But then again, I really don't think that's high. Should it go to decision more than 68% of the time? Probably in the 70. 72, 73, 74, I don't know. There's got to be a few percent of value on that over. And so either guy you like, that decision prop does sound pretty tasty to me. But again, for me, it would be a dog or pass, gun to head, just because I think a little bit of value's there. I'm not expecting him to win, though, so I think I'm going to pass. Here's another one where I really thought I was going to be betting this fight. I prioritized it. I thought Andre Fili was going to smoke Daniel Pineda. After reviewing the film, I don't feel that way anymore. After reviewing the data, I feel even less like that. Now, am I overanalyzing this one, or is Andre Fili going to dunk on this kid?
Man, it's a tough fight. I do agree that the line is a little bit wide here, so I don't think you're getting much value on Fili. But I do think that Fili still ends up winning this fight. I just think that his striking style is going to be a little bit too difficult for Pineda to find success against. He does stick and move pretty well. He has a pretty nasty jab when he is on his game. And then his jiu-jitsu game is not too bad either. But Pineda has this crazy statistics about him. I don't know what the exact number is, but he just does not like to go to a decision, pretty much. Like the majority of his fights are finished, him getting finished or him finding the finish. As we obviously saw in his Herbert Burns and Cub Swanson fight, you get a sense of both sides there with him getting the finish and him getting finished. And I think a lot of people are sour on Daniel Pineda, especially with his performance last time around, getting finished by Cub Swanson, a guy that a lot of people thought was over the hill and just didn't really deserve to be, fighting a guy like Daniel Pineda at that point in time. But that's why we love this sport. That's why we love when upsets happen. And I think that was a perfect example of that with Cub Swanson, drinking the fountain of youth and going out there and getting a big knockout victory. Does Andre Fili have the power to knock out Pineda? Probably, but I'm not banking on it, right? I just don't think that there's as much value on that. Could he club and sub him? There's a potential of that too. But more often than not, when we see Fili put in these situations, he plays somewhat of a safe approach, which is just staying on the outside and picking apart his opponent. And I'm expecting him to do that here against Daniel Pineda. I wanted to find a reason to bet Pineda, as the solid dog at plus 185. Around that range, especially because he came through for me as a pretty solid underdog in his debut or his return to the UFC against Herbert Burns. But I just don't see it, man. I think that Fili will come off that Bryce Mitchell loss with some fire under his ass, and I think that we'll see a solid, disciplined approach from him here against Daniel Pineda, who will probably be forced to chase Fili a lot here, and will more than likely be missing on a lot of his shots. And even if he tries to get his grappling game going, I think he's going to have a lot of difficulties doing so. So I do lean Fili here. I don't believe that there's much value on the line. I do think the line is actually a little bit too wide, but I'm not willing to stick my neck out there for Daniel Pineda at that current number. If he's getting to like plus 250, plus 300 range come fight time, then yeah, he has my attention. But I just highly doubt we see that much volatility in this line over the next couple of days to give us something bettable. But I will ultimately be going with the Fili side, and I'm going to take him to win by decision. Again, you're hearing all decisions from me. I'm expecting this to be a decision-heavy card. Last time around, I think we had 12 fights last week. I called 9 of them to go to a decision. 6 ended up going to a decision. So hopefully I'm wrong this time in terms of entertainment. We don't get as many decisions, but I still do think that we'll get one here with Fili getting his hand raised over Daniel Pineda.
I have to agree with you 100% here. I do think Fili's the pick to win. He should be the favorite, but not as big of a favorite. I thought the line should be more like minus 175. And I don't like betting dogs with only 10 cents of value when, clearly they're not as good. He hasn't fought as good of a schedule. So the data I'm looking at isn't going to be as strong when he's facing a Fili. Where I think the value lies, if you can get behind Andre Fili, would be in the grappling. He's landing 2.5 takedowns every 15 minutes, and Daniel Pineda has a 44% takedown defense. So it's hard to believe that Andre Fili won't have success in the grappling. He should land half his takedown attempts. If he can get some good top pressure, that's a pretty clean way to win a round. But as far as the striking goes, I think it's going to be pretty similar on the feet. Fili he kind of pressures, but he just doesn't have the volume for me. You know what I mean? And look, if you're going to stand in front of your opponent without volume, you just get hit more. And it makes the fight closer than it has to be. So the guys that pressure without volume, I think they got it backwards. If you're not throwing your jab out there at least, and even just punching air, you're making a big mistake. I think he's that kind of guy. I think he's going to have this fight way closer than the odds indicate, but ultimately, yeah, I do see him coming away with the win, and I think he gets it through the grappling. But an easy pass when I make the line much lower than it is. If anything, I think there's a little value on Pineda, but just like you said, I'm not going to stick my neck out there for a bum just because he's got a dime of value. It doesn't work in the long run in the UFC. This isn't baseball where you get 160 games and all you have to do is just take the value all season. You'll come out on top. If all you think you do is take 10 cents of value in the UFC, you're going to get smoked. I mean, the dogs are a dog for a reason. They're being locked in a cage with another man and fighting to the death. The favorites usually do pretty good. If you're taking dogs, you have to make a serious case for them to win the fight, not just have a little bit of value. And with that, I will go to this next one where I think a lot of bettors are making a case for the dog, and I just don't really see it myself. Tim Means, Nicholas Dalby, can you take us through it?
Yeah, I'm surprised at the line movement on this fight. Like, I believe Tim Means actually opened up as a minus 200 favorite, and now he's down to about minus 135. I saw minus 125 the other day as well, and I don't get it. Like, unless you're fully buying into the narrative that Tim Means has a horrible chin and bad durability, Nicholas Dalby, not really much of a knockout puncher, and obviously he does have 3 knockout victories in the Cage Warriors before coming back to the UFC, obviously after that crazy bloody bath that he had against Ross Houston. Still not a crazy knockout artist, right? He doesn't really hurt many people in the striking realm. Like his fight against Daniel Rodriguez mainly played out on the feet, didn't have too much success. Landed really good, clean shots on Daniel, but just couldn't even face him, to be honest. It seemed like Rodriguez had much more success in that fight. And I just want to quickly clarify something. A lot of people are talking about that Daniel Rodriguez fight like he got a gift of a decision, like it was a robbery. I'm not fully on board with that. That was a very close fight. The first 2 rounds were very close. I think the clearest round was round 3, which was Dalby's. And I want to be bad at anybody that gave him one of those first 2 rounds because, again, very close fight. Nothing crazy or significant happened in any of those 2 rounds that said that Daniel Rodriguez clearly won those rounds. So I'm throwing that narrative out the window right off the bat. But the gift that he did get was his third round against Alex Oliveira. If you remember, he got stood up in when Oliveira had a very dominant position. That referee had no idea what the hell he was doing, and he allowed Dalby to get back to his feet, and then Dalby secures the takedown and rides out the rest of that round in his hometown of Denmark, Copenhagen, Denmark. So obviously he's going to be getting a little bit of a rub there. Luckily for him, he gets his hand raised that night. But the Jesse Ronson fight is the one that's a little bit concerning, right? Ronson coming up a weight class on short notice, rocks and clubs and subs him there. A fellow Canadian of ours finally getting a dub inside the UFC. But that's just not a good look for Dalby there. Tim Means, I think, is just going to absolutely light him up on the feet. The only way Dalby wins this fight, in my opinion, is if he gets a Hail Mary knockout. And I will say this, I am slightly concerned for Tim Means. I want him to separate himself or distance himself a little bit more from the shellacking that he took from Daniel Rodriguez 3 fights ago where he got clubbed and subbed. But if he can show good durability like he did in the Mike Perry fight, like he did in the Laureano Staropoli fight, this is an easy win for him. I think he goes out there and lights up Dalby on the feet. I don't know if he finishes him because I think we'll see a more disciplined approach from Tim Means here in terms of just landing his strikes and getting out of the way of the big ones coming back his way. Just stay disciplined, throw out the shots like he did against Mike Perry, just kind of just touch him up, light him up, and then take home a decision victory. And that's exactly how I'm seeing this go down. So I got Tim Means here. I'd say he's probably my second or third most confident spot on this card. And taking him by decision at plus 190 is not too bad either. But I think there's some solid value even at minus 135. I thought minus 200 was the right line. I thought that's where it should have stuck around. But to see that immense Dalby love come in completely caught me off guard. So luckily I didn't put any money on Means when he was up that high, but I'm almost forced to now given what his line is at. And especially if I consider him to be at least a minus 200 favorite here, we're getting a ton of value on him at minus 135 or anything up to like minus 175. So I'm going Means. I think he lights him up. I think he keeps his fight vertical and just lights up Dalby like a Christmas tree en route to a decision victory.
I thought you would throw out that decision prop there. I could just feel it coming because that's kind of the way I see this one going too, my man. Yeah, this is so confusing. This line move makes no sense to me. I originally said this should be like a minus 190-ish, basically the same thing as 200. I don't understand how now we're talking, what, like a 55% probability? Come on. Tim lands 5 strikes a minute, 5.1 to Dalby's 3.2. Tim's done that against better competition than Dalby. So he's landing 2 strikes a minute more than Dalby against better guys. He's doing it at a 48% accuracy, Dalby 37. So 2 more strikes a minute, 11% more accurately. They both get hit 3.58 times a minute. And Tim Means has a 61% striking defense to Dalby's 55. He's better across the board in the striking. Then we go look at the grappling. Tim Means is 41% takedown accuracy, Dalby 33. 64% takedown defense, Dalby 63. Like, there's really not an area where Nicholas Dalby's the better fighter. Tim's got a much better jab. I think he's more fluid on the feet. Yeah, maybe he's a little bit beat up and damaged, maybe not as durable, but getting knocked out by Daniel Rodriguez isn't a big deal. Losing, what has he lost to Price and Rodriguez in the last few? So what, man? Price is a wild animal. He's got a lot of power. If he catches you, you can get knocked out. Daniel Rodriguez has quite a bit of power. He hurt Tim in that one. At the end of a round, I can remember that like it was yesterday, trying to get the live bets in like crazy between rounds. He comes out, finishes him, no problem. Other than that, I mean, he's been pretty damn good. Tim's a good striker. He outstrikes everybody he fights, basically, except for those 2 guys, and those were close. I don't understand the love for Dalby here. And so this is a favorite or pass for me. And I do think the line should be higher, just like you said. I don't understand the movement. Maybe we'll see a big buyback coming. I honestly don't worry too much about the line moves in UFC. Um, it's a little different than the other sports. We have this efficient line theory that sports bettors love to use. Beat the close, you'll be successful. Great. You try that in UFC. Just if you think you can bet every fight just beating the close, you're going to get your ass kicked. Okay. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
The last event, a perfect example with Lara Procopio and Dan Ige, both that got heavy steam through a fight week and got absolutely murdered in their fights.
Yep. And then I also had Bruno Silva at minus 141. The money was coming in against him. And I had Dan Ige at minus 107. He closes like 155. The market in UFC is nothing like NHL or MLB or NBA or NFL. This is completely different. I honestly don't understand what people see sometimes. So when I see this line coming down, I start licking my chops. I passed on Tim. He's one of the first guys I did research for. I prioritized it. But then I thought the line was good. But now the line's not good. So, yeah, value on Tim Means here. He could knock this guy out. He could take it by decision. But ultimately, I don't really understand why this line move's happening. I really don't. So I'm pretty comfortable being the buyback. I'm glad to hear you are. This is something I haven't bet yet, but I'm really considering it. You might have just gave me the push I need to lose a couple $100.
Let's go.
Next up here, this is going to be this one. I don't know what to say here. Renato Mykano, Jai Herbert. Look, on paper, it's like, yeah, Mykano all day, right? That's the paper. But when I watched the film, I just thought there's a lot of stuff Herbert did nice against Trinaldo. I don't think he was as bad as, the loss may look on his record. And that's really all the data we have to draw from. On the flip side, Mykano is like a good UFC fighter. He's landing like 1.8 strikes a minute more than he's getting hit with. He's got a good accuracy at 46% and a 65% defense. So plus 11% in the striking versus expected. He's like well above average. His 3 losses in the last pile here are Aldo, Zombie, and Fiziev, who I think Fiziev's so underrated. He's going to be a challenger one day. There's just no shame in that. And on top of that, he's got a 53% takedown offense, and Herbert has a 33% defense. This guy's given up 2 of 3, and now he's got to face a guy that lands over half. It's a horrible matchup. When we look at these odds, they've been just sitting stagnant at minus 250. It's like, how is there no action at all coming in on this fight? It really blows my mind. And, beyond all that, I'm just so confused at how this line's not moving in favor of Mykano. Then I look at the film and I go, well, he bears a lot better than he sounds here. I think this fight's going to be oddly close now. And so, yeah, I think Mykano is something to look out for. Super talented. He's definitely better than the guy he's fighting. But Herbert's got good footwork, good movement, pretty fluid striking. He hits pretty hard. He had Trinaldo in trouble a couple times. That's not easy to do. That guy's got a cement head. I don't know what to say here, but I could honestly see Mykano busting up some parlays. I got to hear what you have to say here. Maybe I'm overanalyzing, but yikes. This one smells. Something's up here.
Yeah, I do think that we'll get some Mykano action by the time the fight actually kicks off, but I think that'll be more so with people just parlaying Mykano thinking, okay, minus 250 favorite, more than likely going to win against a guy who's only coming into his second UFC fight. But I think that they might get stunned here. Now, I'm actually picking Mykano to win this fight. Don't get me wrong, but there are some inefficiencies in the striking game that I think that Herbert could potentially pick up on and take advantage of. Right? There's the obviously the knockout losses that he had in his past is not a good look on his record at all. But against who they came up against, you can cut him a little bit of slack. But Jay Herbert, just as he showed in the Trinaldo fight, Trinaldo historically a very durable guy, never gotten finished before. Herbert was putting him in all sorts of trouble and was likely to going on to win that fight via decision had he not got knocked out in that last 2 minutes or so of that fight. But I think that Mykano, his best path to victory in this fight, drag it to the ground, get that BJJ black belt going, and try to nullify the amount of power that's going to be coming your way against a guy that hits as hard as Herbert and hits as efficiently as Herbert, because I do believe that Herbert has a cleaner, tighter, crisper strikes down the middle, and I think that's ultimately what's going to allow him to win this fight if he has success with it. But I do think that Mykano's ability to mix it up, I don't think that his striking is horrible. His striking defense just leaves a little bit to be desired. But I do think that he can go out there and efficiently implement his striking approach and then mix in some takedowns and potentially snatch up a neck or snatch up a submission and take that on home with him. So I'm taking Mykano. I think he could actually get it done inside the distance as well, probably by submission, probably in the second or third round. But he's going to have to really, really be careful in terms of the strikes that are coming back his way, especially from the very efficient Jay Herbert. And the last thing I'll say about Herbert, 2 losses, both by finish. One by Mr. Reese McKee, infamous Reese McKee. And then obviously last time round against Francisco Trinaldo, where he got hit with that atomic bomb in that third round. I don't know if Mykano has that type of power, but I do think he has that type of precision, and that could allow for him to get some sort of like club and sub situation. It's just I'm not willing to trust him at minus 250. I doubt he'll be in many of my parlays or crazy lottery parlays that I put together just because of that striking defense inefficiency. But I just don't think that Herbert will completely take advantage of it. So I'm going to go Mykano, and I'll probably take him by first or second round submission, to be honest.
How do you feel about the under in this fight? We got a 1.5, but plus 140 on that under, 135 I'm seeing on some books now. So that's something that did cross my mind. It does feel like, hey, either guy could get knocked out in this one. The sub's available. The action will be there. Small cage pressing them.
Yeah, I like it. So I feel much more comfortable with the under 2.5, and I know it's a little bit chalky at minus 145. Maybe we get some action on the over, and we can get a better line on the under there. The under 1.5 just gives me a little bit of pause, right? There could be a feeling out process. Guys not really going full balls to the wall in the first round, and then we only have 2.5 minutes in the second round to make something happen. That gives me a little bit of pause, but that under 2.5, I'm going to keep my eye on that, see what my bookies drop it at, see what the lines are. If it's closer to like minus 120 or something, I might take a little bit of a poke there. But I can see a conservative approach from both guys. I could see both guys' durability issues showing up here as well. But yeah, you've definitely allowed me to notice it. Let's just put it that way. And I'll definitely be keeping my eye on it for the next couple days.
All right, that's the main card. Now we're gonna sprinkle those prelims, as we said in the intro. Let's start it off. Charles Rosa, Justin James. I know you like this one, so why don't you break it down for us?
Yeah, you guys love having me on because you guys love when I drop my lock and then I play. So that's what I'll do for you guys here with Charles Rosa. If you guys have been following me for a while, you guys know that I love to fade Justin James. I do not think he is a UFC caliber fighter at all. Now, he got lucky, in my opinion, in his fight against Frank Camacho. He took that fight on like less than a week's notice, knew he only had about 2 or 3 minutes to go out there and get it done. And that's exactly what he did against Camacho, who just did not give James as much respect as he should have. Then goes out there as a plus 110 dog to Gavin Tucker. Shout out to everybody that got Gavin Tucker down to that number because he was a much bigger favorite earlier in that fight week. But I did fire on Gavin Tucker. Yeah, I was shitting my pants a little bit in that first round when he did get hit with that beautiful uppercut and then almost got choked out in that guillotine spot. But Gavin Tucker is a very calm, cool, and collected opponent, and he was able to just stick it out through that and then start taking over in the second and third rounds. The Gabriel Benitez fight, another one where I faded Justin James. The body kicks were too much for Justin James. He just couldn't handle it and then eventually crumpled with about a minute left in that first round. And then the Devontae Smith fight. That was actually one fight where I bet Justin James round 1 plus 600 because I'm like, Devontae Smith coming off a knockout loss, first ever knockout loss. Who knows how he bounces back from it? Not to mention a ruptured Achilles, all that type of stuff. There was just a lot going against Devontae Smith, and I felt like if Justin James was going to capitalize on any moment, this would be the one. But he didn't. And this is why another reason why I'm going to be going with Charles Rosa, who I think is just a much more complete fighter. Now, his last fight against Derek Minner might not leave the best taste in most people's mouth, which is why I believe he's a minus 170 favorite here. Otherwise, he'd be up closer to minus 250, minus 300, as I do believe he has that type of potential to win this fight. I'm actually putting him at 80%, which would line him at minus 400. I think that it only will take Justin James a knockout punch to win this fight. He has a puncher's chance. That's really about it. And at this level, that's not going to cut it for him. I truly think that Charles Rosa is very durable. He's been knocked down 3 times in his UFC career, only gotten finished once. He has a very offensive guard that he pretty much springs into action as soon as his back hits the ground, and is successful in it, and sometimes, and may not be as successful like he was in the Derek Minner fight. But Derek Minner, very solid black belt himself, knew what to do to get out of those situations. Whereas Justin James, if I see him find himself on top of Charles Rosa, I do think that Rosa will be able to throw something up and catch him. But pretty much the way that I see it playing out, Rosa needs to be very mindful in those first couple minutes of that first round, stay away from the big power. But luckily enough for him, Justin James telegraphs his shots a lot. I think Rosa will be able to see it all coming, and I think that once he starts attacking the body, starts opening up with the volume a little bit more, it's going to start to wear on James. James does not have a good gas tank, and I think that that's going to be his ultimate demise. So there's two ways you can approach this. I think you can take Rosa straight -170. I think you're getting a ton of value on that period. Or even the under 2.5, which I think is around -120, because I think that if there's a finish in this fight, I think both guys, their win conditions are finishes. Obviously, Rosa can win a decision here too, but James could get that first round knockout. But I think the more likely outcome is Rosa wearing on James a little bit, and then in the second, maybe early third round, sinks in a submission of some point, whether it's off of a takedown or a club in sub situation. But I do think that we'll see James start to slow down come that 6th minute of this fight. And that's where Rosa will really start to take over and show that there is levels to the shit, and that James truly does not belong in the UFC. And I think this is the last time we're going to get last chance we're going to get to fade Justin James, and I'm taking full advantage of it here, especially at such a great line at -170, because I think the scale discrepancy is far too much. And the last thing I'll say, it's just due to Charles Rosa's recent run, right? Like the loss to Derek Minner just doesn't look the greatest, considering that Derek Minner has always been the guy that just goes out there and gets finishes. And for him to win a decision against a guy like Charles Rosa, it caught a lot of people off guard, and I definitely devalued Charles Rosa, but I don't think that's how people should be approaching this fight, because every fight is a different stylistic fight, and I think stylistically Charles Rosa matches up perfectly here against Justin James, and I think you'll find that finish probably in the second round via sub. So I'll definitely be pursuing that submission prop as well, because I think it's going to have some decent value on it. Let me just quickly see what that is, because I actually did not see. Oh, they don't even have the sub props. Oh, yeah, that's great. But Rosa inside the distance +160, solid value, -170 on the money line. Happy with that as well.
Right on, right on. Can't disagree. I think James pretty well sucks. I was surprised he got that win that he got. Honestly, that gave him a little bit of stock. But like you said, the last two fights for Rosa kind of devalued him, but only in the public perception. As far as line value goes, it gave him some value the way you're saying it at -400. We're talking like a 17, 18% edge, which you don't find very often when you're sports betting. That is your MMA lock of the night. For me, I'm going to go over to another fight. I can't even pronounce this name. Shavkat Rakhimov. He's fighting Michel Prazeres. Look, Prazeres is a 40-year-old wrestler. That's all he's got is wrestling. He's 5'6". Rakhimov's 6'1". Okay, so we have a 7-inch height advantage. We have a 10-inch reach advantage. He's got a 77-inch reach to Michel Prazeres' 67-inch reach. And I think this guy's very well-rounded. He can wrestle. He can strike. His striking's crisp. He's got a good jab, good combos, cuts off the cage nice, good footwork, good cardio. He checks all the boxes to me. Yeah, Michel's a good wrestler. Sure. He lands 4 takedowns every 15 minutes. He does it at a 36% clip. Those are good numbers. But he doesn't have the best top control anymore. He's getting old. His cardio's falling apart. We watch Ismail Nardiev get out of many takedowns, reverse position, piece him up on the feet. He was a huge dog in that fight. I think Prazeres is over the hill. And at 40 years old, with his level of activity, I just don't really see how he gets this done. He's going to have to close the distance. He's going to have to take it to the ground. He's going to have to squat. I just don't think he can. I think Rakhimov, hiding behind a 10-inch reach advantage with good striking, is just going to treat this guy's head like a Pez dispenser, cracking it back over and over, probably reverse a couple takedowns that he gives up. I like this guy. I think he can win it inside the distance or by decision. And personally, I think the line's a bit low. It should be in the -350 range. So I'll leave you with that. I guess we'll call it my lock of the night. I don't really have a lock of the night. This is a tough card. There's not a ton of value anywhere, but I want to be as cool as my guest here for sure. So we're both going to leave you with a lock of the night. I'll take Rakhimov. Did I say that right? Rachmanov, sorry. And
There we
Charles Rosa, I'm going to have to look back into because I haven't bet that yet, but it's on my list, and it's another one that's a little bit puzzling as to why it's so low. There's a couple on this card. Obviously, someone's going to prove why they're not as big of a favorite. But, man, alive, I mean, when we look through this, how can we say that Tim Means shouldn't be a bigger favorite? Or Charles Rosa? I'm right there with you, so can't wait for Saturday night. Then we got the bye week, guys. So make sure you really enjoy this one. Great heavyweight fight to end it all. And I can't wait. Thanks for joining me, Manpreet. And to all you guys watching, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Good luck on the weekend.